Welcome to the Dapr community call. It's August 24th. Thank you for joining us. And thank you also for the people who suggested topics in Discord. We'll try to address some more stuff coming from the community. We're always happy to give people a chance to ask questions or also to share some of the stuff they're doing. So please feel free to reach out to any of the maintainers or specifically to me or on Discord if you have any suggestions on anything in the future. So this is the agenda today, based, by the way, on one of the requests from Discord about updates on the CNCF application. Mark is going to give a quick update on the latest about that. Yaron is going to share some changes to Kubernetes secrets, and then the HTTP proxying proposal. And finally, Hal is going to share the proposal or the design for PubSub for actors. So that's going to be an interesting one. We know a lot of people have been waiting for that. And as always, we're going to have time for open discussion. We'll make sure to leave time for people to ask questions. And I think I saw a couple more things on Discord. I hope the people who have more specific questions are on the call and we can address anything. So with that, let's get started. Mark, with the update to CNCF.
Okay, perfect. So earlier this year, we proposed submitting Dapr into the CNCF as an incubations project, and it got picked up and accepted by the App Delivery Special Interest Group, the SIG group. We've been working with them now for the last few months. And earlier in this month, in August, we then did a presentation to the App Delivery Group, to their technical committee there, so that they can provide recommendations about how Dapr should be proposed as an incubations project. And that in turn, we talked to them. They asked a set of questions about what Dapr's goals were and what its impact was, as well as other things in terms of user adoption. And that resulted actually in creating what's called a due diligence document, which basically answers a set of questions that the CNCF is interested in order to track the project's progress and to accept it into the incubations criteria, which of course, if you know CNCF, they have sandbox incubations and the fully accepted versions of this. So, we're trying to make sure that Dapr goes in as an incubations project because it's it's a fairly mature project, which means that you have to spend a little bit more time on the due diligence document. And the PR that we pushed for the Dapr proposal, I updated yesterday. You can see this link inside here at the bottom here. So this is the original PR. And you can see that I added a link to the due diligence document because now this making a public document. So feel free to look at this. Mostly it covers things like contributions from the community, people who've been adopting Dapr, and other things about the actual submission process itself. The next step then is that the CNCF Technical Oversight Committee will then proceed to review that due diligence document, get the input and advice from the App Delivery Special Interest Group, and then proceed to vote on whether to accept Dapr into the CNCF as an incubations project or come back with some other recommendations. So it's with them at the moment. That's the CNCF. Will continue to kind of push and ask questions, but I'd like to think that within the next, soon as possible, next month, they have a voting time on this, but we'll see. Meanwhile, we'll keep you up to date with what's happening. So, any questions on that if people have? All right, fantastic.
I'm not seeing anything. But yeah, feel free as always to drop your questions in the chat. We can also unmute you if the question is a little more requires some explanation or anything. But again, we'll try to get to stuff at the end as well. So if you have questions on this later, feel free to drop them and we'll address them afterwards. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, good progress as usual.
And with that, your own changes to Kubernetes secrets. Let me stop sharing. Are you going to share your screen, your own?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so go ahead.
All right, hey everyone. My name is Yaron. I'm a Dapr runtime maintainer, and today I'll talk to you about some changes that we're making for 1.4 in regards to Kubernetes secrets. And let me know once you can see my slides.
Yeah, I see them.
Okay. So today, what happens in a Kubernetes cluster? Wow, my mouse is lagging real slow. Okay. So today, when you run Dapr in Kubernetes, you have the Dapr control plane installed here on the top left in the Dapr system namespace, and you have the Dapr operator there, which is basically in charge of getting component definitions and supplying them to sidecars that come up. Components are things like secret stores and pub sub components and bindings. And your apps run either in the default namespace or any other Kubernetes namespace. In this diagram, I'm basically showing the default namespace. So you have a pod that contains two containers. You have your application, you have the Dapr sidecar running. And once the Dapr sidecar will boot up, it'll establish a gRPC connection to the operator and get the component definition. At this point in time, no secrets are getting returned. It's just the component definition. But then for Dapr to actually fetch the secret, the Dapr sidecar today will actually talk to the Kubernetes API server directly in order to fetch the secret. And in order to do that, proper RBAC needs to be configured on the pod. So what we do today is, by default, when you install Dapr, we automatically set up a Kubernetes role with get secrets permission, and this is what it looks like. I'll just exit this presentation mode here for a sec and go to Visual Studio Code. Yeah, wrong one. All right, and so we basically install these two roles. All right, so there is a role that gets applied to the default namespace, and it basically assigns every pod that runs Dapr the ability to talk to the Kubernetes API server and get secrets. Okay, and this is the role binding, so it basically assigns it to the default service account. And this has several issues. First of all, you know, it's kind of goes against the principle of least privilege, because the way it works today is for Dapr to be able to get secrets, every pod that runs Dapr can actually talk to the Kubernetes API server and get secrets. And we don't want that to happen. The second thing is, if you're running your pod with a different service account than default, Dapr will just break, and you basically need to know to go into the role binding and change this one to a service account that's not the default one. And also, because this targets the default service account right here, this basically means that by default, any pod in the default namespace will be able to get secrets from the Kubernetes API server. Obviously, this is much less than ideal. And so let's go back to slides. And what's going to happen in 1.4 is this. So we still have, of course, the Dapr system namespace and the Dapr operator. But this time, the Dapr pod, the sidecar that's running in the pod, will get the component definition. But in turn, instead of Dapr talking to the Kubernetes API server directly to fetch the pod using the role binding that's assigned to the pod, the Dapr operator will use its actually existing RBAC permissions to fetch the secret from the Kubernetes API server and return the secrets as part of an encrypted TLS connection from the pod. Okay, so this greatly simplifies both ops, because today, if you need to run Dapr apps in other namespaces, you need to apply the role binding and the role to the namespace that you need. So it's going to remove a couple of steps. And of course, it's much more secure, and pods that are running Dapr will not have by default access to get secrets from the Kubernetes API server, no matter which namespace they're running in. So now, you know, if you're seeing this and you happen to be one of the users who are running Dapr without MTLS, right? MTLS is enabled by default with Dapr, but Dapr has the ability to disable MTLS, right? And so today, if you disable MTLS with Dapr, the connections between the Dapr sidecar and the control plane are not encrypted, right? So you're probably wondering, well, hey, if I'm using, you know, TLS disabled, now if the Dapr operator fetches the secrets, are the secrets going to be returned to the sidecar in plain text? And the answer is no, because beginning with 1.4, all control plane connections are going to be using TLS even when MTLS is disabled, because the MTLS enabled or disabled feature really controls MTLS between Dapr sidecars, but it shouldn't really affect the Dapr sidecar to control plane operation. All of these operations should have been TLS enabled, and now we're just making sure that security is going to be enabled, always, no matter if MTLS is disabled or enabled between the Dapr sidecars. So you're not going to get any performance hit there, because if you disable MTLS, MTLS of course is still going to be disabled between the Dapr sidecars, but you'll get much more secured connection between the sidecar and the control plane. And of course, the Kubernetes RBAC makes much more sense in 1.4. Okay, so I will stop sharing now. And this is it.
Thanks, Yaron. I'm not seeing any questions, but I think the next topic is you as well, about HTTP proxying.
Right, yes. All right, so let me share again.
Yeah.
All right. Let me know when it's coming through. You should be seeing VS Code.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what we saw before. Let me just zoom in a bit here. Okay. So Dapr service invocation. Dapr service invocation is one of the most widely used Dapr building blocks. It allows one app to discover and invoke a different application in the cluster, or today using Dapr and console, even in a remote cluster, and have mutual TLS enabled by default, connection retries, soon also configurable resiliency, and access lists, and a whole bunch of other features. And the way this is done today is, and this is a very simple Python app that's invoking a Node application. The way this is done today is you basically format a call, which looks like this, and you send the request to the Dapr sidecar, which then discovers the other endpoint and invokes the target service. So the way this is done today is you reach into the local Dapr sidecar with localhost here, and you have an API. So we have a special API today for doing this. It's version, so it's 1.0, and you're basically telling Dapr, hey Dapr, invoke Node app with this method. And if you have, let's say, a REST endpoint on the other service, then the REST endpoint will come, full as is right after this method fragment here. So if you have an endpoint listening on API in the order, you'll just put that here. And here we're just sending data. We're sending order 66, and we're posting it to the local Dapr endpoint. And this worked okay, but what we've heard was, this API is quite intensive, and you really need to refactor all of your URLs to do that. And the reason why we did that is because, we started out thinking that this API will change a lot, and its version. So, we might have added more fragments to the URL API server. And so if we were to add something like, I don't know, any special feature, we would have changed the API and upgraded from 1.0 to 2.0, but in practice, after having Dapr out there for almost 2 years, what we've seen is that with HTTP invocations, people really want to be able to just take their code and make as little changes as possible when invoking the other apps, and most of it is not needed. And we've seen a really good example of that with the gRPC proxying. So gRPC is a really special case because, unlike the HTTP case here, it really brings an opinionated programming model and service model with it, but also, just to make it easier for existing applications to adopt Dapr, this might just not be needed. And so what we're proposing in an issue that I'll just show is to basically turn this into this. So your URL will hardly change. If you were invoking your application, it'll just remain, the URL that you had in place. You will be targeting the local Dapr sidecar. So service discovery is on Dapr. So you're calling localhost because you're invoking it through Dapr. But then your URL just remains as is. There is no special APIs or anything to be aware of. It's just your URL. And then we're sending the data, order 66, and we're using HTTP primitives to basically tell Dapr how to discover the other application. So this is very much in line with how we do it for gRPC, where with gRPC today, you basically just use your existing protobuf service calling your target protobuf client, and you're just targeting your local Dapr sidecar, and using gRPC metadata, you say, hey, this is the Dapr app ID, and this is the target service. So we basically want to bring that approach to HTTP2 and just make it a whole lot easier for existing applications to adopt Dapr. Basically, it just means changing your hard-coded, until now, hard-coded service URL to Dapr, and then issue the service ID inside of the header. So if you have any opinions about that, please let us know, either bring it up now or respond on the issue. This is the issue. It's issue number 3546. You can upvote it, you can comment on here, and yeah, I guess that's it. So now I'm going to stop sharing and take up questions if there are any.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions, just thumbs up, I guess. And a comment from Paul. I don't know, Paul, if you want to add anything to this, or maybe just a secrets topic.
Sure. Yeah, I guess one at a time. Hey, everybody, I'm Paul Yuknovich. I'm one of the Dapr core team members working on product with Ori. So yeah, two things. I think one, what your own just showed, we're taking steps to try to make Dapr more kind of incrementally adoptable. And so if, the idea here is if you can use your existing HTTP code, existing HTTP skills, just set some metadata, does that make it easier to do service invocation with Dapr? So I'd love to hear if that's, if we believe that's a good way to go. Back to the secrets thing too, we found one or two inconsistencies between the local secrets component and the Kubernetes secret store, and we really want total consistency. So I just shared in the chat a commit we did so that the local secret store can load multi-valued secrets just like Kubernetes can. And that's it.
Great, thank you. If there isn't anything else, we'll move to the next topic, pub sub for actors. So Hal, take it away.
You bet. All right. Cool. So yeah, so I'm gonna talk about, or I'm Hal. I'm an engineer on the Dapr team. And today I'm gonna talk a little bit about.
I think you're sharing the wrong screen. We're seeing the one that has the speaker notes.
Ah, yeah. I don't know how to fix that because I just want to share PowerPoint.
You can share and then swap displays.
Yeah, we can stop sharing maybe and share the other screen.
Okay, so like move my PowerPoint to that screen.
Yeah.
And then hopefully that'll.
PowerPoint has a swap display button as well when you're projecting. So.
Oh, it does. Look at that. Okay, cool. Then I'll try that. You can tell I don't present PowerPoints very often. All right.
You're about code, man.
Exactly. All right, trying this again. Is that the right screen this time?
Yes. Excellent.
All right, there we go. Cool. So yeah, so I'm going to present, or I'm going to talk about pub sub for actors today. This is still in the design phase. We've recently, or I guess I recently added kind of a full proposal for what we want to do onto the issue. I think it's number 501 in the in Dapr. So if anyone wants to comment on it, feel free to do there. We'll also be asking for comments during this presentation or after it. So let's get into it. So first, some framing feature, some design tenets so we can kind of frame what we're talking about here. The biggest one here being that this is a feature of actors, not pub sub. It will integrate with pub sub, but we're looking at it from the side of actors, as opposed to just overloading pub sub itself. And as a result, we're looking at, we're also going with things like the subscription is provided by the actor host, not by the subscription CRD or the subscription API that Dapr provides today. Actors can be activated by the by the PubSub event, meaning that we're not looking for an individual actor to start up and poll itself. We're looking to be able to have actors activate and deactivate throughout their lifetime based on the events that they're receiving. 4 goes along with that. The event should be pushed to the actors. The actors are not pulling the events. And then 5, just because this is a key thing of actors, we want to maintain that scalability or the flexibility of actors that we have today. So starting off with a sequence diagram, just because I think it makes everything a little bit clearer here. You can kind of see in this that the actor host is the actual entity that provides the configuration. Once Dapr inits the actor host, you can see that it subscribes and it starts the message polling, very similar to the way that we do today. Essentially, when your application subscribes, Dapr kicks off a go routine and it just polls for stuff in the background for you. When we receive a message, we change the callback where before it was essentially doing a service invocation or a direct invocation of the app. Now we're going to do an actor invocation. That's really the only difference here. But because we also utilize things like placement, it means that no matter which host receives the event, your actor can still receive the message. Which is important because it'd be kind of silly if your actors had to receive, or their correct host had to receive the message. It kind of violates PubSub a little bit there. And then you can also see that when we call out to the actor, the demo actor that I have here is only active for that, the period of time that the event is coming in. And then in reality, this would be the event duration plus whatever the drain time is before we deactivate the actor. But for the sake of this, I think it looks clearer to say that it deactivates when the method or the event is done. So how are we going to go about doing this? Again, so what we need to do is to be able to provide the things like the actor type, the actor ID, the method, all the things that are required to call an actor, we need to have in the event itself. So we're providing the type and the method via the subscription itself. That's where we're doing a lot of that matching. And then the actual ID can come in through the event itself, which can either be encoded or which will be encoded into the event. So right now we're thinking we'll just have a cloud event field that will include the actor ID as well as probably the actor type and things of that sort. But essentially we'll just be adding into the cloud event fields. And then, you can publish with this API here, the endpoint, which anyone who's familiar with actors should be very familiar with this endpoint. It's basically an actor invocation endpoint, but instead of calling method, you call publish. And then, it fires off an event to your actor. So one thing that we also, I guess we'll get to in a little bit, but one thing we have kind of discovered from the initial overview of this design is that we do also want people who are using existing PubSubs to be able to use this to invoke their actors. So we have a way of doing that, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. But technically, this is the only endpoint. This is just the actor endpoint. This is the new endpoint we're introducing. We are planning a way of having you be able to invoke an actor via the actual original PubSub API as well. So the subscription configuration, and this is just for the actor API, you can see that we added a new field here called PubSub, and it includes a couple things like the PubSub you're subscribing to, the topic you subscribe to, the actor's type, and the method that's going to be called when we handle this. Pretty straightforward. It's the existing configuration that we already call or it's the existing configuration that we provide for actors themselves. So just a small addition, and you can start getting the kind of the event-driven actor space here. What I was mentioning earlier was the ability to infer an actor ID from an existing PubSub method, and that's what we're thinking here. Is you can pass the attribute of your cloud event that you want to be interpreted as the actor ID, and then you can just use an existing PubSub. You still need to, modify an actor to have the PubSub configuration, but that way, if you already have an existing PubSub infrastructure that you're already using and you want to incorporate actors, you can just specify what field we're keying off of in the event, and then you can go through and have your actors. So kind of what that looks like is, we have a cloud event sample, and we've added these new fields up here at the top: Dapr.actor type, Dapr.actor ID. You can see it's these, essentially these GUIDs. And this is how it would look if you were just doing that publish API where we're pushing something out to an actor. But then if you wanted to use the other method, you no longer need those fields, and you can just say, hey, I already have this existing pub sub. I want to use a device ID as my actor ID, and Dapr can go through and infer that for you and invoke your actor directly that way. So that's kind of how that would function. As for the invocation of it, this is essentially it's essentially just using the actor method interface that already exists, and the pub sub method that already exists is just instead of a callback, again, like I said earlier, directly to your application, it's a callback to your method invocation, and so that way, essentially, we already have all the things hooked up to it. Like we have the background threading, we have the ability to find actors wherever you are. We already have locking in the actors, and we already have all this nice stuff built up. So we figured there was really no point in not utilizing all that. And we didn't need to reinvent the wheel here. The one kind of simplistic case in this is that the invocation to the actor, unless because actors don't really have a strongly typed return at this point, essentially, if the method succeeds, we're acting. If we don't succeed, we can either retry or drop. So it's a little bit simple right now in that regards, but it's a thing that we'll leave open for better actual event handling in the future. It's a thing that we know we're going to have to do eventually anyway. Especially around kind of like unifying actor like returnability and how that's all serialized and really what all that means. Quick example of how we'll actually do the pub sub, or what this would look like in .NET. Just because the SDK experience for actors is really important. Anyone who's familiar with the .NET SDK already knows that we have this ability to specify a topic on a method, which is the pub sub and the topic, and then we call this method. We're basically saying that we can do the same thing for an actor, and then what that allows you to do is you can create an actor proxy as you do today, and then call this pub sub method, where traditionally that would be an event, or that would be a direct invocation to the actor. In this case, we're just saying that we're firing off an event, and it's all handled for you behind the scenes. It's kind of what we're thinking about for the current SDK experience. And then finally, there are some open questions with this, with actor pub sub in general, or where are we going in the future? Do we have value in orchestration? Do we want to be able to subscribe a bunch of actors to a topic and then have them choose? I want 10 actors subscribed to this topic. Just like fire off to whoever's available. Do we want to do like mass message passing? Invoke to a lot of actors at once. Phil just got the pub sub filtering or routing working. So like, how do we correspond to that? And again, I will point out these are just ideas for the future. I don't think we're going to pause actor, like this event-driven actor stuff on that, because right now what we want to do is get the early version of it, provide the value first, and then see how we can go through to that later. But it is something that we are thinking about. And then also, this does add additional contention with subscribers. There are now more places to specify a subscription. And how does that work out? How does that affect the pub sub? It's not something that hasn't already existed, but it is a question that we should probably be asking ourselves as we go forward with the additional subscribers. But that is it. So
yeah, thanks, Helen. I'll just add that we've seen this feature being asked, I think, from the very first moment we released Dapr. People wanted pub sub for actors, because this is an immensely powerful feature. If you think about it, it just removes a lot of boilerplate code that you need to do today. For example, if you have an IoT-based system and you just want to ingest events Today, you'd need to write a separate service that subscribes to the pub sub and then invokes the actor. And that's another service you need to actually maintain and, you know, test and check. And here it's basically just removing the entire need for that middleware service where Dapr will do the pub sub orchestration and invoke an actor for you. I think that's immensely powerful. I just have one question. Can you go one slide back?
Oh, maybe. Yes.
Yes. How could you, like, look at the last line, await proxy do pub sub? How could you possibly mess up Mark Fussel's name like that?
Did I type
So,
Mark's name?
my life has been defined by one L.
Oh gosh. Oh no. Okay. Well, that's you know what? Just so I never forget.
That is recorded for posterity.
It is. Yeah. There we go. But now no one will ever know.
Gotta get it right. Gotta get it right.
Yeah, no, this is an amazing piece of work. We see a lot of cases where pub sub between actors is the preferred mechanism, and you can really scale out your actors. One of the things that actors suffers from is if you call through service invocation from actor A to actor B and actor C and create this call graph, you know, you have the single threaded nature of actors that cause that whole call graph to slow down. Instead, pub sub as a mechanism we can broadcast to a set of actors is much more efficient. So really
Yeah,
good.
and that's another really interesting thing that this enables. It's like it enables inboxes for actors if you think about it.
Yes.
It's a one-way way to invoke an actor, which I think you'll find that in a lot of existing actor frameworks today. And Dapr has been missing that. And I think this is also a really good use case.
Yes, if you look at other frameworks, they talk about message boxes and sort of message ways of sending things. This is really the equivalent of doing that and does it exactly like that.
Great. So I saw, Hal, you have some open questions on the last slide. I don't know if anybody on the call wants to chime in on those, or if not, then of course, doing it on GitHub and Discord is the way to go.
But I have just have one small comment. So I was wondering, like, now that we're adding features that impact the SDKs, I was wondering if there would be value for us to explore an option where we add this feature without requiring the SDK changes. So if you go back to the slide where the SDK information is present, if there will be a way for us, maybe via the configuration, to say that this method or this actor uses pub sub. No, I was wondering if there could be ways that there could be absolutely have no change on the app side. So I'm not saying we should do it, just like maybe we can explore the option.
Yeah, we can definitely look into it. Because at the end of the day, like, you know, if you just call that, if you call the API, it works, and the actor doesn't necessarily, other than like having a subscription, you would need it. But we could, you know, we can make that into a different annotation or attribute, or you could call into the, you know, the existing pub sub kind of framework and make it work that way.
Yeah, I was thinking more like similar to what we did for the actor state store. How that setting does not live in the SDK at all. I was wondering if we could do something similar for this feature, where the setting for the pub sub lives totally outside the API and the SDK, and then the user has absolutely no code change. There's a configuration change in Dapr to make it pub sub. But anyway, just a brainstorm idea. Maybe we can explore this after this call.
Yeah, so I see Federico asks in chat, can we invoke multiple actors in response to the same pub sub event? So Federico, do you mean multiple actor types or instances of the same actor type? So let's say you have like an actor type cat, and you want the same pub sub event to invoke cat1 and cat2. Okay, Hal, is that supported?
I don't think it will be supported immediately, but I don't think it's something that we couldn't not support. I guess maybe this is a question, an open question for everyone else. How well do we handle, you know, multiple subscribers to a single message now anyway? Because in my experience, it hasn't been it's been kind of hit or miss, but that could also just be, you know, maybe I didn't set it up correctly.
There is one feature that we introduced a while back that allows you to get a random UUID as the consumer ID in PubSub, and for some brokers that allows you to have competing consumers. So in this case, that will still not be enough because you will need to spin up different consumer per actor ID. So it's I have to understand the scenario that Federico is asking here. If it is for different actor types, I think it's an easier solution. We could support multiple actor types receiving the same event. I think that would be totally possible. Correct, Hal?
Yeah.
But you know, if I look at this example here and I see the topic, so the topic is scoped to iDemo actor, right? And this is an actor type. So like I would actually expect this to invoke multiple IDs, I think. I'm just thinking out loud here.
So Federico, I think
No.
you can unmute. Maybe you can talk about your scenario.
Yeah. Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so here's the scenario that I'm thinking, right? So we would be like publishing an event and we want like multiple actors to do a specific task based on that event, right? So maybe we are have an actor that does something and then another actor that might be doing other stuff, but they are all reacting to the same event. That's why I'm thinking that maybe we can publish, right, like one event, and then behind the scenes, we would do that orchestration. Maybe it was mentioned before, but I'm not sure if that orchestration is, it's like a broadcast, exactly. Not sure, so.
Yeah, no, I think it's something that we definitely would want to have eventually. I don't think the current solution as it exists, I don't think would support that immediately because we were trying to get the kind of the simplest case to get people, you know, up and running with this kind of thing, given how long it's been asked for. But, you know, you could even see, like, if we wanted to do the orchestration on our side, you could even see that, like, you know, Dapr ID, like that, or the actor ID, like that could, you know, you can make that an array if you really wanted to. Like, there's a lot of solutions that we could pursue here, depending on how much orchestration we want to put on Dapr side. And I definitely don't see anything here that would prevent us from adding it, you know, like in the near term future after we get the initial version out.
If in this feature, you have like multiple, if you scroll to the, there's another slide where you say like there's only a device ID, there's no actor type in the payload. So if you have this type of structure, and then you have multiple actor types, one for each type of processing you want to do, then you can do this. If you broadcast via different actor types, if that works in a scenario, then this could be used.
Right. Yeah, or even maybe we need to publish one different event for each of the actors, right?
Yeah, I mean,
That would make sense.
Yeah, I think that's the thing to think about today is actors have unique IDs, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and usually sending an event to a particular actor ID. So I think the array version of it would probably be a good way of doing it if you want to send it to more than one at once.
Right, but if one of those actors fails, we would still want the other actors to complete their task and not do that retry, right? That's why maybe that broadcast that Tom Cools was saying might be what I would expect, right? But anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Maybe we can mention, you know, something like supporting actor ID arrays in the future on the cloud event on the issue. Hal, can we add that?
Sorry, what was that?
No, I was saying let's not forget about it and like bring it up on the GitHub issue that we want to look into supporting arrays of actor IDs in the future.
Yeah, I can definitely add that.
Awesome. This is really great.
Yeah, it is. Thank you, guys.
Cool. All right, if there's no other questions, I will stop my share.
Thank you, Hal. So I guess with that, we'll move on to the open discussion part of the call. If anybody has anything they want to discuss, please drop it in the chat. We can also unmute you. I know on Discord there was a question. Somebody wanted to talk about Kafka, but I don't know if they're on the call now, and maybe can kind of say exactly what they're looking for.
Oh, but I mean, we can address the question here live, right?
Sure. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
But maybe let's let people on the call the opportunity to chime in first. Eddie says that he proposed gRPC components. Oh, that's an excellent topic, actually, Eddie. Yeah, let's open that one. So yeah, I can talk to that a bit. So Eddie, you opened that 21 days ago. Like in reality, we've been looking at gRPC-based components for a while now, for all of the reasons that you put on the issue itself. You know, you'll be able to build private components and you know, control their upgrades and life cycles very independently from the Dapr sidecar. And I think Johnny Collins, who's a community member, put a really good summary of it. Can you scroll down, Ori? It should be here, I think, because we have a bunch of issues. Yeah, this is the summary where he basically summarized everything that we've been looking at. So, you know, we've been looking at WASM, WebAssembly filters. We had a couple of people weigh in on that. You know, WASM assembly filters are not that mature today. There's a bunch of threading limitations going on, network limitations. And so really gRPC based components is the only way to go. I think the one point of contention that you know we had was, do these gRPC components or are these gRPC components invocable from non-local host pods? So, you know, can you run a component on a completely different pod? My personal take is that if we enable gRPC components, they need to run the same pod for security reasons. And also, you know, we want to have really good performance. So we might utilize Unix domain sockets, which is another feature that was enabled in Dapr pretty recently. And so, yeah, I would really like to see gRPC components coming in, you know, for 1.5, 1.6. If there's any community member who wants to pick up this work and do it, you know, we can help you. Just reach out to maintainers. This would be a really good and very meaningful and impactful work to do for the Dapr project. Eddie, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'll let you add that, like this feature and any feature, especially bigger like this, having the proposal, the proposed design first reviewed is very important. Although if you like start with a PR, the PR might not be merged, and it's a different type of discussion. So starting with a proposal, I think it would be a good one for this as well.
Yeah.
Great. Eddie, I think, I don't know if you have anything to add. I think you can unmute if you want. If not, that's fine too.
Yep. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. No, I appreciate y'all looking at this. And this is absolutely something I think that would be phenomenal for us to add, you know, any custom middleware or any additional components from an enterprise level. And I think Aaron, we had, you know, you'd mentioned a couple of things like the socket and host. I have no problem. It was, you know, running in a pod somewhere else and make a call. You do bring up good points. So I think the Unix socket is fine. A question would be, do we think that we would be able to build in maybe, you know, a .NET custom component that interfaces over gRPC and load it somehow, or would it all be in Go? Can't see a reason why we wouldn't be able to, right?
Yeah, I mean, this opens up the door to components being written in any language and not just Go. Like this might actually be the biggest benefit here, right? Like much more than extensibility. You know, if you look at components contrib, They're all written in Go today because they're built into the Dapr runtime. With gRPC-based components, you can write components in, Kotlin or, Java or Scala or C# or Python or whatever, really. Anything that supports gRPC.
Okay, great. With that, yeah, so I saw a question from Tom about decision records. I think, yeah, so Archer put in this link. We do have some decision records. Kind of feel we might need to add some more, but I think we've got plenty of those here. I don't know if we're capturing everything, Archer on your own, but this is the place to look for those to get a sense of the context of some of the architecture decisions that were made in the past.
Yeah, so we used to maintain these decision records mostly prior to the 1.0 release, so that like an historical understanding of the architecture design choices we took can be publicly visible. We actually had an update to something to a decision record today that came in from one of the Alibaba folks. So these still get maintained, but probably and maybe not on the level that we'd like. So yeah, I encourage everyone to maintain these architecture decision records. They've proven themselves at a couple of points in the past.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Is there anything else anybody wants to? Oh, Eddie, I think looks like you want to add something.
No, I had lifted my mic up and it muted me and I couldn't unmute. So I was just saying thank you. It'd be great to be able to write these in .NET. We've got a ton of .NET developers that would love to contribute. And so having those components written in any language would be phenomenal.
Yeah, great.
Definitely.
Thank you for the issue of the proposal, and yeah, great. Okay, awesome. So if there aren't any more topics, I think we can close this call today. As always, you can find the recordings on YouTube. This one will probably be uploaded in a few hours. And feel free to continue any discussions on GitHub issues, on Discord. And as I said in the beginning, if you have proposals for things you want to discuss on these calls, please reach out, and we'd love to have you share what you're doing, or maybe ask a topic to be addressed by a maintainer. So with that, thank you very much, everyone.